The hypersonic phase just started. Not with missiles crossing continents, but with alliances forming in silence. A new axis is emerging, not announced as a formal treaty, not declared as a military pact, but visible through actions, through strategy, through money. China, Russia, and Iran are aligning in ways that challenge the existing global order. And this is not just geopolitics, this is a financial shift, a strategic realignment that could reshape power, trade, and the global system itself. Because for decades, the world has operated under a single dominant framework. One financial system, one reserve currency, one center of power. But now that structure is being challenged, not by one country, but by a coordinated set of interests, different ideologies, different systems, but a shared objective: reduce dependence on the existing order. This is the David versus Goliath moment, but with a twist. David is no longer small, it is coordinated, strategic, and increasingly capable of operating outside the traditional system. And that's why this matters. Because when multiple major powers begin aligning economically, militarily, and financially, the result is not just competition, it's fragmentation. And fragmentation is how global systems begin to break. Now let's go deeper. China brings economic scale, the world's second largest economy, a manufacturing powerhouse, a country with massive foreign reserves and growing technological capabilities. Russia brings resources, energy, oil, gas, critical minerals, the ability to influence global supply chains through control of key commodities. Iran brings geography, strategic positioning in one of the most critical energy corridors in the world, control over routes that impact global oil flow. Individually, each country has influence, but together they create a network that can operate across energy, trade, and finance. Now look at the numbers. China's economy is measured in tens of trillions of dollars. Russia is one of the largest energy exporters globally. Iran sits near choke points that handle a significant portion of global oil shipments. This is not a small alliance, this is a structural force. Now here's the contrast. On one side you have the existing system, dominated by the United States, supported by alliances, powered by the dollar. On the other side, you have an emerging network, less centralized, more flexible, designed to bypass traditional controls. This is the core conflict, not a direct confrontation, but a systemic competition. And the battlefield is not just military, it's financial, because control over money is control over the system. Now let's talk about how this alignment is actually working. Trade is the first layer. Countries are increasingly conducting transactions outside the dollar. Bilateral agreements, currency swaps, alternative payment systems. This reduces dependence on the existing financial infrastructure. The second layer is energy. Energy flows are being redirected. New supply agreements, strategic partnerships, long-term contracts. This creates resilience, the ability to operate even under pressure. The third layer is infrastructure. Projects that connect regions. Roads, railways, ports, these are not just economic investments. They are strategic assets, they create alternative routes, alternative systems. Now here's the critical point. This is not happening overnight. It is gradual, but it is consistent. And once these systems reach a certain scale, they become self-sustaining. Now let's connect this to history, because this pattern has played out before. Empires rise when they control trade, resources, and finance, and they decline when that control is challenged. Look at the British Empire. At its peak, it controlled global trade routes. The pound was the dominant currency. London was the center of finance, but over time new powers emerged. The system shifted, the United States took that role. Now look at today. The United States still dominates, but the system is under pressure. Rising debt, increasing geopolitical competition, growing fragmentation. And at the same time, alternative systems are being built. This is the pattern. Not sudden collapse, but gradual transition. Now go even further back. Rome controlled vast territories, trade routes, resources, but as its financial system weakened, its control declined. The empire didn't fall in a single moment. It eroded, then it collapsed. This is how systems change. Now let's talk about the hidden financial forces behind this alignment. The first is debt. The current global system is built on massive levels of debt. Over $300 trillion. This creates vulnerability, because high debt limits flexibility. It makes the system sensitive to shocks. The second force is currency dominance. The dollar has been the backbone of global finance, but that dominance creates incentives for others to find alternatives, because dependence creates risk. The third force is resource control. Energy, minerals, infrastructure. These are the foundations of economic power, and control over these resources translates into influence. Now combine these forces, debt pressure, currency competition, resource strategy, and you get a system in transition, not collapsing yet, but shifting. Now let's look forward. In the next 24 to 72 hours, we may not see dramatic changes, no major announcements, no sudden shifts, but the underlying process will continue. Trade agreements will evolve, energy flows will adjust, financial systems will adapt. Because this is not driven by headlines, it is driven by strategy, and strategy operates on a different timeline. Now consider the long-term implications: a more fragmented global system, multiple centers of power, competing financial networks, reduced reliance on a single currency. This creates uncertainty, but it also creates competition. And competition can lead to conflict, not necessarily military conflict, but economic conflict, financial conflict. This is the new battlefield, and it is already active. Now here's the most important point. This alignment is not about immediate dominance. It is about long-term positioning, building systems, creating alternatives, reducing vulnerability. And once those systems are in place, the balance of power shifts. Gradually, then suddenly. Now here's the final warning. We are not just witnessing geopolitical cooperation. We are witnessing the early stages of a structural shift in global power. A shift that could redefine trade, finance, and influence for decades. History shows us how this ends. When competing systems emerge, the existing order is challenged. And when that challenge reaches a tipping point, the system changes. The only question is this: are we watching the formation of a new global order, or the beginning of a fragmentation that will lead to instability, conflict, and the eventual collapse of the system we know today?